Hi there, we're going to look at the basic direct instruction strategy for procedural knowledge, which is designed for the introduction of new strategies and for practice and application. You can pause and read the high achievement goals and academic literacy skills, which are important for your. So research is clear that teachers who spend more time demonstrating and explaining procedures, modeling, scaffolding, those skills are more effective than teachers who spend less time doing so. So again, it's focusing on the teacher taking a secondary role, spending her time instead of a deliverer of content or his time, but rather a deliverer of skill. Again, I want to really focus on questioning. Questioning during the directed practice phase develops a deep conceptual understanding of the skill. The questions shape this understanding. So you need to really give a lot of thought to your questioning. What questions are you going to ask? An assessment for learning. Make the criteria crystal clear for the application of the skill during practice, so they know what an exemplary product looks like and they can strive toward it. Scaffolding by you is vital and, as necessary, modeling and remodeling. Your direct instruction phase, modeling direct practice, where the teacher uses questions. There are the questions again to lead learners through the steps and help them recognize the reasons behind them. Scaffolding practice, where the learners start to ask their own questions by working through the steps. And independent practice, finally, where learners practice 2 or 3 examples on their own with answers, a mark schedule given, a rubric, and they use their own words to explain what they're doing in each step. And while possibly they haven't followed the steps correctly, you can just pause there and read through that. And what I've done next is I've modeled the strategy for you. So how to write a causal response, causes and effect. And as you know, you teach a strategy using words, and gradually, as the strategy becomes automatic, it becomes a skill. Here's my word: consciousness, causal, the relation of cause to effect, contingent, that's very important because in the causal responses, there are incidental or unforeseen events that happen that can cause an event. And then I've just put down the Untersmenschen, just because I use it in the essay. And then I put in the instruction words for causation questions, so that the students can start to see those are the type of instruction words that will require a causation or causal response. Okay, so let's look at why. So we need reasons in order of importance. There was an occurrence called Kristallnacht or Night of Broken Glass occur? Why did it occur on the dates of the 9th and 10th of November 1938? And I remind the students here to read the question posed carefully, because an irrelevant response, no matter how well written, is not going to get you marks at all. Then I suggest and talk through the questions I'm going to ask. And I'm going to give a timeline, and I'm going to mark off the 9th and 10th of November because I know that. And on that night, those 2 nights, actually, an event occurred called Kristallnacht. So my question is, what has changed and what has remained the same? What has continued? What conditions exist? So we look at anti-Semitism, which essentially existed for centuries and was magnified by the Nazis. And there you can see I've put in that as a continuity. So on the 9th and 10th of November 1938, anti-Semitism had existed for centuries before that. It had magnified during that period of time from 1933, but it wasn't new. Then we look at laws that were passed, starting with the Civil Service Law in 1933 in April, the overcrowding of schools and universities law in April of 1933, which basically had non-Aryan children removed from classrooms. And we look at that, and that's also a continuity. It's there. It's been there. So again, what changed? What is the contingent aspect? What happened to make the German people, the Nazi Party, act so, violently against the Jews in November? These conditions laid the framework, the backdrop, but a new or different factor came into play, which would have been the spark. And so we look at that. What was different at that moment in time? What had changed? What alternative existed? What provided an opportunity that did not exist before for the Nazis to act? What was added to the existing conditions that increased the chances of Kristallnacht? And it was the assassination of a diplomat in Paris, a Nazi diplomat in Paris called Ernst von Rath. Okay, so then I'm going to encourage the students to use a guided note like this. The fishbone guided note is quite good for causes and effect, and to write down a plan, because when you're writing an essay, you really need to have your, info at hand. And so in this process, I'll ask them to recall, retrieve information. Maybe I'll give it to them as a task to fill in, but they must have their plan ready. And again, we look at that contingency, the contingent factor. And then I give them an example, an exemplar. But the exemplar is neither exhaustive nor exclusive. So in other words, for something like history, it's a possible answer, a possible response. It doesn't have an exact response. But this would be an exemplar that they can read through and check for. And then we've got the introduction, and I actually have given them some ways of opening up that introduction. So I've taken it is credible, then from column B to suggest that the following factors, namely, now remember our diamond shape is, this issue made the Kristallnacht unavoidable. And we decided that was the assassination of von Rath. And then the following factors are really essentially the conditions that existed. So there we had said the magnified growth of anti-Semitic sentiment from 1933, as well as the fact that Jews were slowly and methodically stripped of their legal status, as reasons for Kristallnacht. Then I'm going to say to them, now you must explicitly write which is the most important, and end off your introduction by referring directly to the question. So the most compelling, so you can see I've used that from column D, the most compelling of these factors was the assassination of Omrath. It is this factor that made Kristallnacht inevitable in November of 1938, because it provided the Nazi state with an excuse to escalate its official Aryan policies into violent acts against non-Aryans or Untermenschen, subhumans. Okay, so you'll see, I encourage them to paraphrase the question because that really helps so they can see if they've understood it. The topic sentence of the first paragraph then follows, so that's now talking about the assassination, and I've set out the steps and the concluding sentence again coming back, why this assassination led to Kristallnacht directly was because the Nazi Party used this violence triggered by the assassination as a pretext for the burning, looting and destruction of Jewish property by the Hitler Youth, and we go back to the anti-Semitism, and the agents of the Gestapo and the SS. So then we look at our other conditional factors, the things that had on the continuum structuralist view. So non-violent officially, with discrimination through law, and these were the different laws, and as the Jews were no longer German because of the Nuremberg laws, their citizenship had been stripped from them. They were basically defenseless, vulnerable to violence. And the anti-Semitism I put in there, and the feelings provided for the escalation of prosecution from unofficial to the officially sanctioned Kristallnacht, which eventually led to the final solution. And then we have a concluding paragraph. And here again, I give them leads or phrases to use that lead into their paragraphs. So Kristallnacht is seen as a move by the Nazi government towards more violent anti-Semitism. Over 90 Jews were killed and more than 30,000 arrested. From the argument presented, it is clear that, and there I've led them through, I've spoken it through, and you do several examples like this. The steps, the exemplar, the steps broken down, and so on. So for next week, I would like you to have how-to videos ready for the 31st of August, and they're to be sent through to me, please, at josehouselive.org for me to go through before you need to post them on Monday. So just to clarify, everybody is going to use the direct instruction strategy for next week. I'm really happy to help. If you need any assistance at all, please WhatsApp me, voice note me, and I will be more than willing to help you. Okay, thanks guys. Bye.